Holy shit, it actually dropped. Hey there, folks, the number one Chief Keef fan from the Infinite Jukebox here with another album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Chief Keef record, Almighty So 2. I can't believe this actually came out. I did not think this was ever going to release. Look, Almighty So 2 kind of seemed like one of those records that was just a myth, or at the very least, something that would never see the light of day legitimately. I'm gonna be completely honest, I thought it was more likely it would leak somewhere and that I would end up hearing it on Soulseek before I actually heard it on streaming services, because over a decade after the original Almighty So mixtape dropped and became one of the definitive classics of the Chicago drill scene, Chief Keef has become, objectively, one of the most prolific, one of the most influential, one of the most iconic rappers of an entire generation, and what felt like an endless cycle of announcing a sequel to the, again, classic Almighty So, it's been mostly worth the wait, actually, as shocked as I am to say that. I mean, it felt like this record was constantly getting new release dates, and then it actually appeared on Apple Music that little bit before it actually dropped recently, and suddenly everything felt way more real. It kind of doesn't feel like this should exist still. It's almost kind of cursed listening to it, but in a way that I'm more than happy to feel, because man, it's just nice to have this record in any capacity. And it also certainly helps that both as a standalone album and as a sequel to one of the most iconic and beloved rap albums of the 2010s in general, it manages to hold up extremely well. Chief Keef himself sounds livelier than ever here, though I don't necessarily know if that comes as a huge surprise, considering the past couple of years have seen him go on a run of albums, mixtapes that have been consistently strong in terms of performances alone, but really he does put out some solid performances here that I think are very much worth checking out if you are into the whole Chief Keef brand of flow and style, which I personally am, and I think whether he's waxing poetic about his life on tracks like Believe or going for a more predictable but well executed braggadocious style on cuts like Treat Myself, Keef is just consistently in the zone, and he never really exits it until after the album is completely wrapped up. There's no real lull in the action here in terms of Keef himself's performances. It even feels nice hearing him get kinda serious on a few tracks here. I mean, this wouldn't really be a Chief Keef album if he was just totally reflecting upon his life for the entire runtime, but on the handful of tracks here where he does get a little more down to earth, a little more introspective, it's really interesting to see the dynamicism that we don't normally get from Keef as a performer and as a songwriter, and he manages also to unsurprisingly kill it as the, pretty much as far as I'm aware, sole producer of this record, as he continues expanding upon the imposing yet very raw kind of sound that does feel uniquely his own, that has been attempted to have been copied by many other artists in the wake of his come up. And I gotta say, as a whole, this is probably the most impressive Chief Keef completely standalone album that we've gotten in many years. I mean, Almighty So 2 really does feel like this sort of creative vessel for Keef and Keef alone, as he is producing, as far as I'm concerned, again, the majority, if not all, of this record. He's putting out some of the best and most energetic flows and performances that we've gotten from him in a number of years, so on and so forth. This really does feel like his record and his record alone, which is in turn why it's a shame that the features just do not stack up to him here. I mean, whether you go with Tierra Whack on Banded Up, or Quavo on Never Fly Here, or Lil Nar on Jesus or Sexy Red on Grape Trees, none of the input from any rappers here besides Keef feel particularly notable. I mean, there aren't any bad features here outright. There's some alright flows coming from the featured performers here. For the most part, they're fine, but they just don't feel like they really fit into the record. They don't play off Chief Keef particularly well, and they don't walk away with any particularly quotable lines or especially memorable performances that really stand out on this record as essential or anything of that sort. I mean, they're brief passages constantly, but they do come up often enough and are consistently underwhelming enough that it does feel like they do, to an extent at least, affect the overall quality of the record. And maybe I would end up being a little bit lenient, maybe a little kinder towards weak features here, if they weren't some of the biggest artists in the world right now, or at least the United States, so I guess more the country, but either which way, my point is, Quavo, Sexy Red, these are some of the biggest musicians in the entirety of America right now. And hearing them put out some middle of the road at best and genuinely weak at worst verses here, it kind of feels like it's not only a wasted opportunity for them to really shine on this record, but also feels like a wasted opportunity for Chief Keef, as the features that are here, that are kind of essential in adding some variety and versatility to the record, don't manage to stack up to his own performances, ultimately leading to the only memorable parts of this record being Keef, and then leading to this record coming across as maybe a bit more monotonous than it truly is. There are features here. There are moments where Keef's performances are broken up by other features here, but ultimately at the end of the day they just don't feel that distinct or memorable. It's not enough to ruin this album or anything like that, but genuinely I've listened to this album multiple times since it dropped, and I can't say I really walk away with any feeling towards any of the features here other than just eh. But overall, even with any criticisms I have regarding the features aside, Almighty So 2, it may have taken a comical amount of time to release, and it's kind of nice to hear Keef himself poke fun at that here on this record, but it ultimately, at the end of the day, it feels like a worthy successor to an album that helped define an entire scene and era of rap at large, from one of the most underappreciated, underestimated, and one of the most influential rappers that has debuted within the last 20 years. So, overall, Almighty So 2, yeah, you know what? Worth the wait, for sure. I'm going to give this record 3.5 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. Thank you for watching the Infinite Jukebox, and I will see you in the next one.